All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes. I am your host, Sean Redfern. Happy Labor Day out there. I hope all you guys are having a good day off. I hope the boss man isn't making y'all come to work today. I know we went to brunch and kind of felt bad because as soon as we left, the girl says, "You guys enjoy your day off," as if to say, "You coming here is making me have to work today," which is probably true. It's the way it goes. All right, yesterday we did initial reactions. We did like just I watched the game in the pool while I was drinking way too much beer. I had my thoughts about what happened during the game, and I kind of just spilled all those things out yesterday in initial thoughts. By the way, this is what we do every week. Generally, it'll be Monday where we do our initial reaction. Tuesday, we'll do a after action review, which is today's show, and then Thursday, we will do a show on just kind of a preview of the upcoming weekend. And then Friday is our predictions and our Trace Ultra games, which is where we pick three games each week that are outside of the Texas game. We try to go for games that are sort of marquee games. For example, we would have done USC LSU, we would have done Notre Dame A&M, we would have done Georgia and Clemson had we did Trace Ultra games this week. So we pick them. We keep track of it all season long. Last year we did really good. We started off kind of slow, and we ended up doing really well. I think we got up to like almost 70% last year, just straight picks. We're not doing any points or anything crazy like that, but we never do. We try not to do. Some weeks there's not a lot of marquee games for some reason, especially early in the season. But once you get into the conference schedule, you start to have the marquee weeks, and it's not hard to find games. But we don't do just like easy games. So I'm not trying to be 70% on something that's simple. Uh, it's not going to happen. So today we'll do the after action review. And again, that's where I watch the film, watch the game again. I don't watch the film. I hate when people say that. Watch the film. None of us have access to the film. Big difference. You get all kinds of different angles, different zoom, different, just a whole lot of different stuff when you say film versus just watching the broadcast again. So I watch the broadcast, I record the game, watch the game. And that's what we'll talk about today. And then we'll do our last Texas trivia. We're going to be giving away a pair of tickets and a parking pass to the Kentucky game later on this year in November down at DKR. Our first ticket winners had a good time at Daryl K. Royal on Saturday. Got to see a big 52-0 win over Colorado State. Said it was hot, but the view was nice. And the picture he took, forgot how good a view it was. I can't wait to go back for the Georgia game. But nonetheless, our ticket winners have been in the house, and we've given away three other games. We'll give away the final game today. That's 5 games, folks. All you got to do is check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes, and just follow us, man. I try to give away stuff. I got some hats made. Who knows? I might do some hat giveaways. I've definitely got some koozies made that I will be packing in a backpack when we head to games this year. If you see me, ask me for a koozie. If I have one, I'll give it to you. Uh, if you don't like to watch videos, don't like Twitter, don't like TikTok, don't like YouTube, but you do sit in the car all day and you like to listen to podcasts, check us out on any of the podcast places. We're on Apple, we're on iHeart, we're on Spotify. You can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com as well. Listen to the episodes straight from there. Check us out. We would appreciate it. After action review. So, some people have never heard this term before, and I don't blame you. It's a military term, and it may just be an Army term. For those of you that don't know, I was in the Army for 4 years. And so there's all kinds of good acronyms and terms and great, just awesome stuff. And an after action review in the Army is where, during training, you would have a training exercise or part of a training exercise, and you would all come together after the training exercise to have an after action review. And it was just sort of a way to go over what went well, what didn't go so well, how we could improve, things we should absolutely not do, things we should absolutely continue to do, that type of stuff. So I call the second podcast of the week the after action review, where I watch the film and give you my thoughts. And the other cool thing I do is I understand that I'm a very emotional person when it comes to football, especially Texas football, absolutely Texas football. So I probably say things on my initial reactions that just aren't steeped in a lot of truth. They're just my perception at the time. And so when I go back and watch the game, I always correct those things. I want you guys to know that I don't dig in on stuff. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we'll always do that. So after action review time, the offense, we'll start there. 545 total yards of offense, 190 of that on the ground, which is pretty good. Maybe not as good as I kind of expected, but nonetheless, still very good. Um, the offense was just pretty blistering in this game. Uh, Even probably more so than I thought at the time while I was watching it. They just have a lot of guys that are going to make a lot of plays. I feel bad. I feel bad for opposing defenses this year, which is not to say that Texas can't be stopped. I'm not trying to say anything like. I just feel it's a tall order. You're gonna have to win a lot of physical battles to beat Texas because I don't think you can scheme around just all the different things you can do. And keep in mind, Steve Sarkisian's not throwing the kitchen sink at Colorado State. And there was just a lot of multiple looks, multiple plays out of the same look. Uh, just your typical Steve Sarkisian stuff. And it's only going to get more and more like that as the season goes on. So schematically, the only scheme that really busts Texas's chances up on offense is just overwhelming the offensive line, and they're pretty good offensive line. So I mean, most teams aren't going to be able to do that consistently. Which again, we're not saying they cannot be beat. We're not saying that some teams won't be able to do that. I'm just saying scheming around stuff is probably not going to help you too much. You're going to have to win a lot of physical battles. One of the other things we do on this after action reviews, we talk about players that popped. And offensively, man, probably the top of the list for me is Jarrett Gibson. 10 carries for 67 yards. He had a touchdown. He got close to another touchdown. I just did not know how athletic Jarrett Gibson was. And I talked about it on the show yesterday. I don't know if I just watched the wrong film or if there was something off with the film that I did see of Jarrett Gibson, but he has a ton of lateral quicks, and it's just really explosive. I love the way he's a one cut and done guy. He's not dancing around. He sees some daylight and he's through it and through it really quick. I was really impressed with Jerry Gibson, and you guys know how much I love Jaden Blue, and you know how much I love Trey Wisner, and I don't not love him any less today. But man, Jerry Gibson, that's a hell of a trifecta right there. When you can throw Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, and now you got Jarrett Gibson in the mix. We said it earlier when both those running backs, when C.J. Baxter and Christian Clark got hurt, we told everybody not to worry about it because there is tons of talent there. Now we don't want any more to get hurt, but but we weren't going to be in trouble as long as we can continue to stay healthy at that position. Another guy that popped for me was Matt Golden. 3 catches for 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a really explosive guy. He's going to be a problem. Uh, I mean, again, this whole offense is going to be a problem, but him especially. I see some big things out of him. Another guy is Isaiah Bond. He had 5 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Did have a little bit of drops, a little bit of the drop skis, but I don't feel like there was one earlier in the game which did not show up on my replay because of the Vanderbilt overtime thing. But I feel like I saw one during the early part of the game that might have been egregious. The one in the second quarter where he really had to go up and try to get it. I still should have caught it, but it wasn't like one of those egregious drops. And we saw a couple. We saw a few drops, uncharacteristic drops out of some really good players today. I think Isaiah Bond is just an outstanding route runner. He is so precise in his cuts and his breaks. And I just mean from like a directional perspective. I don't know what the scheme is, so I'm not going to sit here and say he's running the route exactly how it gets drawn up. but I feel like he's probably really close, and definitely he can get separation so quickly, just because he's just so precise in those movements. Another guy that popped for me, man, Brian Wingo, and I had Eric Henry on the show back when we previewed the wide receivers, and I tried to get Eric to say that Ryan Wingo was going to be a guy that was going to surprise people, and he wouldn't do it. I don't know that I don't know that we're to that point yet. But 4 catches for 70 yards. He is a big bodied dude with just some crazy speed, agility. That one catch he had that Arch got him late. He kind of posted up to block a little bit and then broke inside on the slant and had a really nice run afterwards. Uh, that was some good stuff. You just don't see a lot of guys that can move like that are that big. So it'll be interesting to see how Ryan Wingo sort of. We've said it before. Like Steve Sarkisian has, I do not envy. I mean, I envy him on one hand, but I do not envy him trying to have to keep all these guys happy on the other. Another guy was Quinn Ewers. We talked about it. We said we talked about how we did a TikTok on Saturday morning. He doesn't need to be the guy. He doesn't have to play out of his mind. He doesn't have to be, a Heisman type player, the greatest quarterback to ever play for this team to do really well. And I think he did exactly that on Saturday. 20 for 27, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have the interception, but I'm not concerned about that at all. Uh, Quinn Ewers just had a really nice, I'm going to deliver the ball. I'm going to deliver it on target and let these guys go do what they do. He did have one hell of a throw, and we'll talk about that one in a little bit. And we talked about it yesterday already, but the more I see that throw, the more I'm just amazed that he was able to make that throw and just trust the guy to break out on the other side of all that. And then another guy, man, when I was watching the end of that game, Big Cole Hudson, man, with a massive pancake block late in that game, pulled around from the right side, just absolutely crushed a big defensive end. Might even been a defensive tackle from Colorado State. Just put him straight smooth on his ass. And Cole Hudson's a guy uh, that had to start as a freshman at Texas, I believe at center, and then he moved around to right guard, played back and forth in those roles. And so he's kind of a guy that was asked to do a lot of stuff early on in the Sark era, and it's kind of been recruited over and kind of been you know out talented for lack of better terms. But man, still really good. And matter of fact, that whole second team offensive line came into the game, and they just kept opening up holes and protecting the quarterback. So when they say when you hear Kyle Flood talk about wanting to have 10 guys, man, I think he's got his 10 guys. They can not a lot of drop off. Some drop off, sure, because you got some NFL guys sitting there on that starting offensive line, but not a lot of drop off when you go to those twos on the offensive line. So that is a very very encouraging to see. On the defensive side, um, players that popped. Jade Barron with a really really nice interception. The cool thing about that play is he really shouldn't have even been involved in that play necessarily. He just kind of settled and saw that nothing was happening in front of him with that little fake screen out there, and he just kept dropping and dropping and saw the ball get let go and went and got it. And so pretty big play. Another guy, David Benda. He to me looks completely different today as a player than he did early in his career. He just fly. I mean, he had a couple of tackles for loss in this game where he just knocked the piss out of people. Uh, just got downhill, got through the hole, and just knocked the piss out of people a couple times. Really fun watching David Benda. I thought, David Benda was always a guy that was pretty talented, right? I mean, all these guys are pretty talented, but you look at like star ratings and things like that. I think he was a 4 star or maybe a high 3 star. A guy with potential, but it just early in his career just never really showed up. I mean, he's on the field a lot, but it was because he had to be on the field. There just wasn't a lot of depth. And now he's kind of turned into a playmaker. I started to really notice him turning the corner or having turned the corner last year in that Alabama game. He just dude's going to be good, and I think He may not be drafted just because I think there's kind of some size issues with him. He's big, but he's kind of short for to carry that much weight. I think he's around 6 feet. So typically, you don't see a lot of 6 foot and under linebackers in the NFL. But man, he can play. I think he'll. I think he'll. I think he might be a guy that gets a free agent type of deal, sticks with the team, and probably he probably is a special teams dude in the NFL and a backup linebacker. But that's okay. I think he'll find a career in the NFL because he works and he's gotten a lot better. Another guy, and I'm really happy to say this one, Baron Sorrell. I think he affected the passer a lot in this game, despite not having any sacks. Uh, he put some pressure on the quarterback. He did a lot of the little small things that you want guys to do. He did those things to really affect the passing in this game. I mean, he had a rush up the middle where he got some pressure on the quarterback. He got his arms out real wide on a throw to the sideline that caused the quarterback to have to throw around him and just throw a really inaccurate pass. So there was a lot of that in the pass game. And then he's always really, really good at the run. I think for Baron Sorrell, I mean, to me, that's what keeps him in the starting lineup is his ability to really set the edge in the run game. And he's a bigger guy. He's like 265, probably maybe closer to 270. He's a big dude, but he's just really good on the edge at just setting that edge and not letting anything get outside of him. Uh, the rest of the team defensively was really quiet, yet very effective. I mean, they shut out a Division One opponent, and that's never easy, but they did it. And there just wasn't just not a ton of flash. I mean, I guess you could talk about Wardell Mack's interception, which it was really good, but it was a terribly thrown ball. That's not Wardell Mack's fault. He made a great catch. Took a lot of physical ability to catch that ball and get that foot down to secure that interception. But quite frankly, that should have been a touchdown that the dude just airmailed badly. So but yeah, effective defense, effective offense, really good special teams. Bert Auburn, perfect on kicks. That's all you ever want out of a kicker, and we're gonna point that out every time. If the kicker is perfect on kicks, by God, we're gonna call them out and let the whole world know that they were a player that popped special teams wise. He had one field goal, 7 PATs, and then Silas Bolden. Wow, uh, that punt return he had was big time. Got him set up down there close to the red zone towards the end of the half. Ended up with points, and so again, man, that's what you want. So uh, the defense, the defense for the most part was pretty stingy. We'll talk about some final thoughts here on the defense in a minute, but before we do that, let's talk about the offense. Uh, speed. Final thoughts on the offense is man, they just got a ton of speed, and I think, and this is going to be blasphemy, I think they got better at wide receiver. I love Xavier Worthy. I love Adonai Mitchell. I think they're both outstanding players. But I think and I love Jordan Whittington. What Jordan Whittington did for this program, just sort of sticking it out, battling through a lot of injuries, and just being just a selfless leader on this offensive team last year. You can't say enough about it. But they got physically better at wide receiver this year. This is going to be a crazy if they can keep protecting Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers might throw for 4,000 yards this year. There's just so much talent out there on that offensive side of the ball. They were pretty good on third down, 50%. Uh, that's it's pretty damn good. 50% of the time they get a conversion on third down. They were real good on fourth downs. They were 66% there. Here's a number. Here's a statistic for you that if you watched the team last year, you saw them struggle with this in both the games they lost. They were 7 for 7 in the red zone in that game. And again, I know it's just Colorado State, but they did it. They went 7 for 7 in the red zone. So good on them. Uh, thought the O line struggled a little bit early. Uh, it seemed like there was a lot of penetration in the run game. Just maybe not necessarily penetration, but they also weren't moving the Colorado State defensive line. I think on that sack where Quinn did get sacked, he didn't really have a chance. Somebody obviously blew an assignment, ran right through the middle and got a sack really quickly. Quinn really didn't have a chance on that one. So they looked a little, I don't say bad, just off, but they did get better throughout the rest of the game. In fact, a lot better. So kind of glad we dodged that bullet and they turned that around. I thought Quinn managed the game well. 12 different Longhorns caught 25 passes, and some of those were from Arch, and they may have been to guys that Quinn didn't complete a pass to. But just generally speaking, the quarterbacks managed that game very well. 74% completions by Quinn, and I think like at least 4 of his incompletions were drops. He only had a few. The ones he did have, he had an interception, and then he had some drops. Like I only remember seeing really kind of one bad throw. It was like a little corner out to Golden, and they eventually scored on that drive anyway. But that was a bad throw, and I don't know what the miscommunication was there because he was open. Uh, Interception, we talked about it. I don't think it was his fault. I think it was just a nice hustle play by the Colorado State defensive end or defensive tackle, whoever that guy was, that got back into the play and got his hand on the ball. I mean, Quinn could have tucked it. He probably could have ran. Uh, he probably could have found somebody to get the ball to sooner. I think he was trying to make a big play. He just held the ball a little too long. But you know, those things will happen. The interceptions that drive me nuts are just physically bad plays where you just make a throw that you shouldn't make, or you miss a read that you shouldn't miss. Those are the ones that will consistently get you. Sometimes teams are just going to be a little bit better than you on any given play, and that's kind of what happened on that play. Defensively, let me back up. I think Texas. You saw a lot of big scores out of SEC teams. You saw 77, I believe, 63. I mean, just some freaking stupid, gross scores. Most of those were against Division One AA schools. I think Texas could have dropped 80 in this game if they really, really wanted to. If Quinn Ewers plays, if the starters play a full 4 quarters in this game, they could have easily got to 80 points. But they didn't, and they still kept scoring points, and they still kept holding Colorado State. So kudos to them for that. Defensively, final thoughts. Held Colorado State to 36% on third down, which is pretty damn good. They were 0 for 2 on fourth downs, which you can't get no better than that. 200 yards, less than 200 yards of total offense on the day. The thing they did really well in this game to me was they tackled really well. Playing defense is all about getting to the ball and then making tackles, right? And there was a time when Texas would even have trouble getting to the ball, or certainly getting numbers to the ball. They solved that pretty quickly under Steve Sarkisian, but they had some games where they just couldn't finish tackles, and man, they are like glue right now. You get your hands on. I mean, they get their hands on you, and you're not getting away. They're just really good tackling team. I think I saw someone post that they only missed like 3 or 4 tackles the whole game, which is outstanding. So that's, to me, that's a really solid sign that the defense. They may not be the best defense in college football. They probably won't be because only one can do that. But I think they're going to be pretty good this year. I thought the DBs held up really well. We didn't get to see, we weren't playing Washington from last year. We weren't playing some of the guys that are going to be elite. Weren't playing a elite wide receiver group across the board. But they did have a really good wide receiver, and Texas held him in check really, really. I think he only had 5 catches for like, I don't know, 27 yards or something like that. Uh, but the individual battles, the DBs won. They were right there on almost every play. It was contested, and they had 4 pass breakups in the game. So the DBs, at least early, that's one of the concerns we had about this team coming into this season was would the defensive backs be able to play a little better than they did last year. Um, I talked yesterday about how there was no edge pressure because that was one of the things that I wanted to see was some edge pressure, and I was just wrong about that. They did get quite a bit of edge pressure. There was no sacks, but they affected the passer. Uh, that you go back to that interception by Jade Barron. Barron Sorrell was right in that quarterback's face, definitely. And I even said this on the show yesterday that I thought it was all Jade. There was no pass rush on that play. I just completely missed it. Absolutely, Baron Sorrell was right in the quarterback's face, kind of got him leaning back, and that's kind of how the ball sailed the way it did. Um, so the edge pressure was there, which is exciting. We would love to see it translate into sacks, and I think eventually it will. Uh, there's a ton of bodies out there now. You look at guys like Ethan Burke and Baron Sorrell that have been there. You got Trey Moore. He had some nice pass rush moves earlier in the game. You got a Colin Simmons who is super raw but just crazy athletic. Then you got a guy like Colton Vosick who got to play quite a bit towards the end of the game. Man, that dude, I know I've said it a bunch on this show, but that dude is just freakishly big. Uh, I know why they call him Baby Bosa now. I mean, that dude for a 6'5", 265-pound dude, he is like extremely well put together. Like clone him is what I'm basically saying. Try to get guys that look just like that. I think he's another guy that can get some pressure off the edge in the right types of situations. So I think all the keys are in place. Now, have they developed to make those pass rush moves better and not just try to rely on speed and not just try to rely on bull rush? You know, you got to have a toolbox full of tools to be a really really good pass rusher. So we'll see how that sort of develops the rest of the season. But I was pleased after rewatching the game with what I saw. Where I'm not so pleased, and I'm a little bit concerned, to be perfectly honest, is with the run defense and specifically like the interior uh, defensive line play. There was too many easy runs early in that game. I almost feel like Colorado State came in with a game plan of we're going to pass the ball because we've got this really good passer, we've got this really good wide receiver. We feel like our O line can hold up in the quick game. And what they should have probably done and realized pretty early on in that game is we can run the ball a little bit on this team. Uh, and even if you're not getting first downs and getting the ball down the field, at least you're continually you're sticking with that and you're saying this is what we're going to do and eventually we're going to get catch you slipping and we're going to throw one over the top. That was a big that was a big missed opportunity by Colorado State. I kept thinking to myself as I was rewatching the game this morning, like, what are they doing? Like, why are they not running the ball more? Because they had a lot of success with it. Now there were the negative plays where Texas's sort of physicality and just we've got better players kicked in, but there were certainly some runs where they just gashed Texas up the middle. And Colorado State is not a good running team. 123rd in the country last season, rushing the football. So we're not talking about a team that's a traditional running power or even close. Like not even just a good. And again, I think it starts at that interior defensive line. You just didn't see the same chaos. You did not see the same chaos as you saw with Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. Not even anywhere close. Uh, I think Vernon Broughton is probably the most of that you're going to see. You might see it out of man, big number 95, Alfred Collins. You might see it out of him every once in a while because by God, all the tools are there. It's just not consistent. And then we started seeing some of the backups come in and they're turning their backs into double teams instead of fighting through double teams and fighting across the face of double teams. I just I'm not saying they're still really talented there, but they're not gonna beat teams in the run game the way they beat teams last year, which was we just absolutely blew everything up in the middle of the field. Every single play there was offensive linemen flying the wrong direction, landing at running backs' feet. I mean, those two dudes made a mosh pit out of the middle last season, and we're not going to see that this year. This year, we're going to have to eat up blocks, and those linebackers are going to have to scrape, get downhill, and make some plays. I think if Texas is going to be really successful, and again, this is all based off of one game. Things could get better. Things probably will get better. But again, just based off that one game, I think you're going to see Texas linebackers have a lot of tackles this season and you're going to see not a lot of, sort of stat sheet type stuff from the defensive tackles. Michigan is definitely going to test them, and I know Michigan lost a lot off that team, but they're infinitely better than Colorado State is across the front, and so that'll be kind of the battle to watch. And Michigan. We've seen Michigan. They're not afraid to just run the ball over and over and over and over again, especially if you ain't going to stop them. So be interesting to see if the jump from week 1 to week 2 for the defensive interior uh, is a big one. Again, I think the talent's there. It's just a consistency thing, and Sark's been talking about that all offseason. So we'll see what happens there. I think they played a clean game. Can't argue with that. They only had 3 penalties, 2 of them procedure, one of them like a horse collar type deal late in the game. I thought situationally, like we talked all last season about situational football, winning those battles inside the battle of the game, right? Like winning before halftime, winning right after coming out of the locker room after halftime, winning in the fourth quarter. They did all those things. They scored 3 touchdowns in the final 6 minutes of the first half. That game went from kind of a snoozer, kind of like a all shucks, like here we go again type. We just don't look impressive on the scoreboard to just an absolute blowout in like 6 minutes. And that's how good this team can be. And it was all 3 phases of the team that did that: the special teams, the defense, and the offense. Uh, if this team can maximize that, man, they'll be really tough to beat. They won after halftime. They got a stop, and they went down the field and got a touchdown. And then they continue to win late in the game with backups where they held on to the shutout. They scored 3 more touchdowns or 2 more touchdowns after that first early second half touchdown. So I thought situationally they did all those things. If you go back and look at last season, they didn't do those things really well, especially against Oklahoma, and that's pretty much what cost them that game. They played a ton of guys, and that's always good. That it's going to pay off down the road. A lot of guys got reps. I mean, we saw walk-ons at almost every position towards the end of the game. Well, every position where there were walk-ons, we saw a lot of them playing. So uh, you got to like to be able to do that, and that was one of the problems. One of the problems early on in the Steve Sarkisian era at Texas, even the games they won, they just weren't blowing people out, and they could not get other guys out on the field. Uh, Here's an odd one for me to say since I wasn't at the game, but I'm a little disappointed in the crowd late in the game. It looked like a lot of people hauled ass early in the fourth quarter, which I get it, man. It's hot. You probably just want to get out to the tailgate to get some beers, get some water, get some whatever you're drinking, get some food, maybe some decent food, some barbecue. You know what I'm saying? I get it. I've left early from football games before. And maybe I have a different perspective now because I don't live near there. So there's really no reason. Like before, I would leave to try to beat the traffic to get the hell out of Austin and back home. Now I live so far, I'm not leaving that day anyway. So we typically will stay to the very bitter end. I wish people would stay more in blowouts because that's when a lot of those guys that don't get to play often in that type of environment get a chance to get out there. Those guys work hard too, and they deserve to kind of be excited and hear the crowd and all that stuff. And there was still a lot of people in the seats, but you could tell it was getting sparse and empty. Let's do better, Longhorn fans. I know we can do better, but nonetheless, overall, it was a good home win in week 1. I think there's a lot of teams right now that wish they could have won game 1 that didn't win game 1. And you can't really argue with how they did it. 52-0. Pretty solid ass whipping by any measure. So I come away from this game thinking like right now, my only concern is how this team's going to hold up in the run game on defense against a really solid opponent that can run the football. They're going to see a lot of those in the SEC this year. So hopefully we get some stuff fixed there. And we can be good there. We're just not going to be Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. I just don't think that's going to happen. It would not be a Horn Takes podcast sort of early week podcast during the season without talking some shit about some officials. And I only saw 2 this weekend. I'm sure there were more. The fumble that was not a fumble in the Texas game, where Mo Blackwell just comes up, absolutely blisters the running back, clearly knocks the ball out of his hands, and Texas jumps right on it. Not only did they not call it a fumble on the field, they didn't even review it. Or if they did review it, they decided that it wasn't a fumble. And I have no idea how anyone that watched that on film or on video could come away and say that was not a fumble. It was 1,000% was a fumble. Basically, as soon as he impacted and the ball was coming out, and they blew it. I don't know. You're bitching, dude. You won 52-0. I'm bitching because the only job, the official's job is not to care what the score is and say, oh, well, they're winning 52-0. I'm not going to call this. That's not their job. Their job is just to officiate the game by a certain set of rules. And yet, over and over and over and over again, we continue to see just shitty officiating in college football. The other one that I saw was the first down in the Texas A&M game that did get reviewed, and somehow they upheld a first down. I mean, that guy was never any closer than a half a yard to the first down marker, and not only did they call it a first down on the field, but they upheld it. And I just, man, I don't understand. I don't understand why we have replay if A, they're not going to use it, and B, when they do use it, they're going to completely ignore what they see. I don't get it, man. You don't need a micrometer to tell that dude was not anywhere close to that first down. But yet here we are, we're talking about it. And it's only going to get worse, folks. It is only going to get worse. We'll just have to grow up about it and continue to bitch about it. That's all we can do. Let's get into a little Texas trivia before we break today. We're giving away a pair of tickets to the Kentucky game. It's real easy the way this works. All you got to do, listen to the show. It'll be up on YouTube. Comment the answer to the trivia question that I'm about to ask correctly and be the first one to correctly do it. And you're going to win yourself a pair of tickets and a parking pass to the Kentucky game. Here's the question. Who is the all-time career leader in tackles at the University of Texas? What position did he play? And how many tackles did he have? That's a 3-part question, folks. So you got to have 3 answers. Here we go again. Who is the all-time career leader in tackles at the University of Texas? What position did he play? And how many tackles did he have in his career? That is the show for today. We got a short week again. We talked about it yesterday. Today's Labor Day. We got work tomorrow, work Wednesday, and then we're hopping on a plane bright and early. It won't be bright and early. It's going to be dark and early Thursday morning. We're going to try to do a show from Ann Arbor at the stadium area. We'll definitely do a show from Ann Arbor on Thursday, but we're going to try to get over by the stadium on campus somewhere and do a show. I think that'll be cool. We'll preview Michigan tomorrow, and then on Thursday we'll have predictions and final thoughts and what we're looking for in this game against Michigan. Again, we're going to have some special guests lined up here pretty soon coming to the podcast. Thanks for everybody participating in the ticket giveaway. I hope you all at Win have an absolute blast. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys nothing. We really, really appreciate it. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked.